On today's show, Media Day has arrived. I've got the things to look forward to. Plus, I've got one important question for every single member of the Cavs. We'll talk about what all those are straight ahead on today's Media Day edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham, and you might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92 through The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. And I just want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube as we get started, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com today to get started. Media Day has arrived. Training camp is here tomorrow, and Cavs basketball is just about back. Now, Media Day is a day where guys will, as it sounds, speak with the media for the first time for the most part since last season ended. We have heard from a few guys over the course of the offseason, guys that played for the Summer League Cavs. So like Jalen Tyson, Craig Porter Jr. spoke with us. The new acquisitions in Lonzo Ball and Larry Nance Jr. spoke with us. But this will be the first time that we will hear from Donovan Mitchell since he left the podium following the Cavs Game 5 loss to the Indiana Pacers. This will be the first time that we hear from Evan Mobley since that final postseason game against the Pacers. I don't know if we are going to hear from Darius Garland or Max Strus for that matter on Monday because of their current injuries. So I don't know whether or not we will have anything from them. But I do have one question that I'm interested in knowing the answer to from every single player on the Cavs roster. But the first thing I do think that it's worth looking for, and it's the thing that everybody first notices when you get into Media Day, right? Because Media Day is inherently one of my favorite days of the NBA calendar because it is the day where whether you are a team that is in the position the Cavs are in where they expect to win the title this year and they believe that they can win the title this year. And I certainly believe that they can win the title this year. Whether you're a team in their position, a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, who realistically can't win the title, but they have Giannis, or even a team like the Charlotte Hornets or the Brooklyn Nets or the Washington Wizards, you can go up and down the list of NBA teams, and there's optimism with every team. And I think that's a really cool thing. So one of the first things that I think we will notice at Media Day is the vibes are going to be great. The vibes are great at every Media Day across basketball for the most part. There are outliers, of course, but for the most part, the vibes are great. And I expect on Monday at Rocket Arena, the vibes to be great for the Cavs at Media Day. That's just what I anticipate this being. I see no reason why that wouldn't be the case. If it's not the case, that would be, I think, a red flag. But I would imagine that will be the case. I'd be very, very surprised if the vibes at Media Day are anything less than stellar, because that's how it goes. The Cavs are going to be an extremely, or should, I guess I should say, the Cavs should be an extremely optimistic group. They should be a group that feels like they got the requisite reinforcements this summer, given some of their signees or guys that they acquired via trade. And I think that they're a group that has every single thing that they need to go out and win the title. Whether or not they do so is obviously to be determined. But I think that is the first thing that I will look for, that we will probably notice when Media Day begins on Monday at Rocket Arena. The next thing that is just as important, if not more important than the standard level of optimism surrounding the team, the next thing would be the eye test. Now, when I say the eye test, we're not actually talking about guys playing basketball. The only dribbling of a basketball that will be done inside Rocket Arena tomorrow is for some photo shoots, because Media Day means that the roster will sit up on podiums and they will field questions from folks like myself, like Chris Fedor from Cleveland.com, Spencer Davies from Clutch Points, like media types like us will be asking questions throughout the day at Rocket Arena. And then they will have some photo shoots. They will have some other things that they need to take care of while they're wearing their uniforms. Like, this is not a day that is about getting better at basketball. It's the last thing you do before training camp starts. So the only dribbling that's going to take place is during photo shoots, because that does happen and it leads to some cool photos. So good for them. But when I speak about the eye test, I'm talking about, how do these guys look, right? Who is the guy that, oh man, looks like they're in the best shape of his life, right? Because some teams have had media day already, teams that are going overseas for various things, like the Philadelphia 76ers, I believe, are going overseas. The Phoenix Suns had their media day. They're going overseas. And most notably here, the New Orleans Pelicans had their media day. They will be going overseas. And like Zion Williamson looks great, right? Zion Williamson looked like he was in the best shape of his life. If you've not seen the photo of him, do a quick search and you will see exactly what Zion Williamson looks like. And it's like, hey, maybe this is going to be the year. I have my doubts, but maybe this will be the year. But as I bring this back to the Cavs here, the biggest thing that I have there is, well, what does Evan Mobley look like? Because last year at media day, I thought Evan looked noticeably bigger. Like, he looked like somebody that was noticeably stronger than what he was the year before. And then he went out and was a much more aggressive offensive player, and I think played like a stronger player during the season. Now, he didn't want to dive into the specifics of exactly how much weight he put on or how much stronger he felt. Like, he said, yes, that was a point of emphasis, but he didn't want to really dive too deep. And I understood why, because you don't necessarily want to be labeled as something. But what does he look like in his uniform for the first time since the postseason failure that the Cavs had? What does he look like? Does he look like somebody that put on strength, put on weight? Does he look like he's a little bit bigger, particularly in the upper body? Like, do his shoulders look bigger? Do his arms look bigger? Those are things that, you don't necessarily win or lose basketball games because a guy got bigger. But I look at Evan Mobley as an individual and I just think, yeah, he is somebody that should add a little bit of weight. He should be stronger. And I think those things in the long term would do him wonders. So he's going to be the guy that I'm looking for that. And the other one, and I don't know if he will speak at media day because of the injury, but when Kenny Atkinson and Kobe Altman were asked, actually it was Kobe Altman, I asked a question about Darius Garland and his potential return, like when he's going to be back from his offseason foot surgery. Kobe talked about Darius not being able to do basketball stuff for a while this summer because when you have a foot surgery, like, you can't go out there and shoot jumpers. You can't run around for a while. You got to let that foot get back. But the thing you can do is a lot of weightlifting, particularly upper body weightlifting. So what does Darius Garland look like? Because last year, as I mentioned, walked out of Rocket Arena, I just thought, man, Evan Mobley looks bigger. Like, he looks like he added some serious strength. On Monday, am I going to walk out of Rocket Arena feeling that same way about Darius Garland? And, Darius Garland doesn't need to go out there and look like the world's strongest man. He's your point guard. He doesn't have to go out there and just be ripped out of his minds. But could he be bigger than he was before? Yeah, I think so. I think adding some strength to his upper body would do him well on both ends of the floor. I think he'd be a better player all around if he were a little bit stronger. He doesn't need to go out and add 25 pounds, but could he have stood to add 10 to 12? I think so. And I do wonder, is that going to be something that he did? Is that going to be something that's noticeable? What does he look like? Because we know, listen, the foot is going to be something that probably keeps him out for a little bit. Like, I would be, as I mentioned last week, I would be surprised if Darius Garland opens up the season on the floor for the Cavs. And I think everybody would be surprised. I think the Cavs themselves would be surprised if Darius Garland begins the season healthy and available for the Cavs. But I think if we see him, if we get eyes on him, if he's somebody that looks like he put on strength, if he looks like somebody that is bigger and stronger than he was the year before, I think even if he does have to miss maybe the first 3 weeks of the season, I still think you're going to feel really good about where Darius Garland is going into this season for the Cavs. Now, I've got questions for Darius. I've got questions for Evan. I've got questions for all 14 guys that are on standard contracts. I'll tell you what all of them are and how important each of them are next, right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade because 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors, with each 2-ounce shot packing the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. I can already tell you on Monday, I'm probably going to need a 5 Hour Energy, right? Because not only do I have media day going on at Rocket Arena for most of the day, then I'm going to sit down. I'm going to record a podcast. We're going to talk about everything at media day. And then I'm going to go to the airport and I'm flying to Florida because training camp starts Tuesday at IMG Academy in Florida. How am I going to get through that day? Especially having a layover. Not a direct flight for me. I'm going to have to take a stop in Atlanta. I'm going to have that layover. How am I going to be able to make sure that I'm functioning? I can get to where I need to be if I don't land to Florida till midnight. And then Tuesday, that's going to be a long day too with training camp. I'm going to need another 5 Hour Energy. And lucky for me, they're incredibly portable because they've got big taste and a tiny shot. You can take it anywhere. And that is one of the best things about getting the boost. You can get that boost whenever you need it. Plus, as I've mentioned, when you consume caffeine, it's going to make you feel good, right? But then you're going to have the crash and you're going to feel worse than you did before. Not with 5 Hour Energy because they've got zero sugar, zero crashes. That's the best part for me. So enough with your boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5, HOUR energy.com or on Amazon today. Thank you again for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Please make sure you're subscribed. Cavs season is here, and I don't want you to miss a thing. So we're going to start off with Evan Mobley because I have a question for Evan Mobley. I have a question for every single player of the 14 guys on the Cavs that are currently on standard NBA contracts. And I want to begin with Evan Mobley because my feeling on him as being the guy that can take this team to the absolute next level has not changed. And the biggest question I think for Evan Mobley that will certainly be asked of him on Monday at media day is, where did you improve the most offensively this summer? Because last year he talked about getting stronger. He talked about getting better in terms of his outside shot. And I do think that his jumper improved from 2 years ago to last year. And I thought that was evident right away, even if he wasn't pulling the trigger from long distance early in the season quite as frequently as he was later on in the season. But where did he get better? Where was his point of emphasis on the offensive end of the floor this summer? I think the best answer he could give is tightening up his handle. I really, truly do believe that, because if he tightens up his handle, he's going to be somebody that is awfully difficult for defenses to deal with, because he's going to be able to create so much more efficiently for himself, which I think if you look at how good the Cavs were offensively, they had the number 1 offense in basketball and the second most efficient offense in NBA history. If you look at that, I don't see it as a group that is maxed out. I see that as a group that is still a work in progress. Now, they're a great work in progress, but they're still a work in progress. And I think the thing that takes them over the top, that takes them to the very next level, is Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley becoming a guy that can get to the basket more efficiently, that can create for himself more efficiently, that creating for himself more efficiently turns into being a better assist guy. I do think he's a good passer, but I think those assist numbers, if he starts being able to create for himself more, I think those assist numbers then start to go up, because he's going to be more of a playmaker as opposed to just somebody that is a relatively good passer. Number 2, Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, Donovan is the star of this team. The Cavs are Donovan Mitchell's team. And in recent years, they have gone as far as Donovan Mitchell can take them. And Donovan has had some fantastic postseason performances. He's had 3 very, very good regular seasons with the Cavs. He was just a first-team All-NBA player. But much like his teams in Utah, the Cavs have not been able to get out of the second round. Donovan Mitchell, for as much as I think of him as a winner, as a great player, as somebody that should be a perennial All-NBA player, that is a perennial All-Star, he's not had the postseason success that you would envision somebody of his caliber having. Is that always his fault? Absolutely not. So that leads me to the question for him. What will make this year different than previous ones in terms of postseason success. Because Donovan is at the point, he's not going to be judged on what happens from tomorrow until the final day of the regular season in April. I mean, in terms of regular season awards, yeah, if he has a great season, he'll be all NBA again. He'll be an all-star. He will be somebody that maybe finds himself on MVP ballots. Maybe he rises up the ranks of the top 100 lists. And I saw ESPN's had him at 15th, which I think is criminally low. We had him at around 9th for the Locked On top 100, which I think is much more in line with where he is. I had him 5th, but I do think that he is a little bit underrated as a player. Now, maybe some of that changes with another stellar regular season, but ultimately, he is at the point where he's going to be judged on what his team does in the postseason because of him. And I do think it's not as if this is Donovan Mitchell's last chance to like be a champion. That's silly. I think that he has plenty of more chances, particularly here in Cleveland. But I think it's maybe his last chance to be the best player on that team. Because I look a year from now, I think Evan Mobley will be the best player on the Cavs. And that doesn't mean Donovan Mitchell's getting worse. In fact, I don't think it is. But I think Evan's just getting that much better. And I think like there's a world where the Cavs have 2 top 10 players in basketball 12 months from now. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I think that world exists. Maybe it's the one we're living in. We'll find out. But what is going to make this year different? What about this team? What about this past summer? What about last year's failure is going to change the way that things go next time around? Because at a certain point, you do have to come up with those postseason successes. You have to come up big in those big moments. Donovan Mitchell, for as great as he was in that Pacers series while playing injured, and it was not his fault that the Cavs could not advance, didn't get it done. And that's the harsh reality of a business that it's pass fail, right? And the Cavs failed. They did not pass last year. They failed, despite the fact they won 64 games. So what's going to be different? What about this team is different? What about you is different going into this season that's going to change things when the postseason arrives? I will get through the starting 5 first, and Jarrett Allen is the next guy I want to talk about. And I do want to say for Max Strus, just kind of when will you be back is the question for him. Don't want to spend a lot of time on him being a former starter last year. Wanted to slip that in right there. That's the only question because we just don't know when Max will be able to play basketball. So I just really don't have a better question than that. But for Jarrett Allen, the question I have is playing all 82 games a specific goal again this season? Because for Jarrett, I do think playing 82 games, while it is a remarkable accomplishment and it is something that requires, I think, a lot of physical and mental toughness, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for doing that because there are very few guys that can go out there and answer the bell every single night. It's tough. It's really, really tough to play 82 NBA games and then be ready for the playoffs. That's why I think this year, Jarrett Allen's goal should not be to be a guy that plays in all 82 games. I don't think that should be a goal of his. Now, I'm not saying that Jarrett should get injured. Like, that is silly to think. But I thought at times last year, he looked like a guy that was out of gas, that he was worn down and exhausted. And I don't know that he was in the best place he could have been physically in the postseason. Had he not played 82 games, does that change the way that the postseason goes for the Cavs? Probably not, because Jarrett Allen playing every night had no impact on Darius Garland's foot or DeAndre Hunter's thumb or Evan Mobley's ankle. But I do think Jarrett can be better in the postseason. And he has, I think, more than anybody else on this roster, underwhelmed from the guy he's been in the regular season to the guy he's been in the postseason. I think that difference has been bigger with him than anybody else. And I do think if the regular season for him becomes less of a priority and the postseason becomes more of a priority, maybe that's the thing that could get it to change. Playing 82 games in a season is an incredible accomplishment, and Jarrett Allen deserves all of the credit in the world for it. But I think for him, instead of that being a focus, I think the focus should be playing your best basketball in April, May, and June, because that is the thing that Jarrett Allen has not done yet today. DeAndre Hunter, one of the final. Well, actually, no. We're going to go Darius Garland because he is a starter. And we don't know that DeAndre Hunter will, although I imagine he will. But Darius Garland, how important was adding strength this offseason? Because Darius is somebody that, as Kobe Altman mentioned, added some strength, right? He broke his foot, not broke his foot. He needed surgery because of that toe injury that kept him out in the postseason. And because of that, as I mentioned earlier, he spent a lot of time in the weight room. How important was that? I don't want to spend a ton of time because I have talked about that, but that is the question that I have for Darius Garland. And then the last starter, and I'm going to include DeAndre Hunter here because I do believe that he's going to be the starting small forward, not just while Max Strus is out, but I think that that's going to be a post that he holds for the entire season. So this gets me to it. Does starting matter? Does it matter to you to be in the starting five? Because DeAndre has played both off the bench and as a starter throughout his career in Cleveland and in Atlanta. I think for him, it will be an interesting answer because I think the Cavs are better when he starts. I think that the Cavs would be in a better position if they got their 5 best players on the floor, and DeAndre Hunter is one of those 5 best players. And putting him in the starting lineup, I think, is the thing that makes the most sense. Now, I've got a lot of guys on the bench to get to, and they're very, very important questions for some guys that could have a very big impact on winning for the Cavs. So we'll get to that next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. The Browns were disappointing. They were. They did not cover the 10.5-point spread against the Detroit Lions on Sunday. So what we're going to do, we are going to not click on the NFL tab. I don't want to know what the Guardians are, what the Browns are next week against the Vikings. I want to go look at what the Guardians are because Guardians on the money line, game 1 of the wild card round, playing host to the Detroit Tigers. Tarek Skubal going to get the start for Detroit. Guardians are plus 132 on the money line. Now, they've faced Skubal 4 times this year. Guardians went 2-2 in those games. They won their last 2, including one where Tarek Skubal turned into Brian Pomprion and snapped the ball over the first baseman's head, which was hilarious and a disaster for Detroit. Plus 132 for the hottest team in baseball against a guy that they've seen 4 times, including twice in the last 2.5 weeks. Skubal's the best pitcher in the AL, no doubt, but the Guardians, I think, might have his number right now. So we're going to take the Guardians plus 132 right now on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Guardians playoffs are here. Football is here. And the NBA is just about back. So visit FanDuel.com right now to download the FanDuel app today. That is FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today. And you can bet just $5. And if that $5 bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, $300 in bonus bets is yours. Again, head to FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com today. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. And if you are watching the show on YouTube, as we continue on here, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I have a question for every player that I anticipate to come off the bench for the Cavs this year. And I want to start with Sam Merrill because I do think that he is right now the guy that I would peg as the most likely guy to be the starting 2 guard, given that Darius Garland not necessarily expected to begin the regular season active for the Cavs. And for Sam, he enters this year on a different contract than what he was on last year. He did sign with the Cavs just before free agency began on a deal that is paying him substantially more money than what he was making before. And when a guy goes from making not necessarily like league minimum, but much closer to league minimum than where he is right now, when he has a pay increase like that, typically other parts of the roster have to change. And that is true in Cleveland. The Cavs could not keep both Sam and Ty. Now, I thought they did a very good job of changing the roster to fit that. But with Sam, the question I have is, in what ways do you see your role potentially evolving with additional responsibilities offensively? Because I do think that the Cavs are going to ask Sam Merrill to play make a little bit more. And I think at times we have seen Sam be much more than just a movement shooter. We have seen him be somebody that can get downhill to the basket and can, I think something very important for him, can attack closeouts and do things like that. But I am very curious how he personally sees his role expanding to include things that are more than just being a movement shooter. And I do think that this is more of an offensively geared question, because I don't think his role is going to change defensively. If anything, I think his life is going to be made a little bit easier off or defensively because of the addition of Lonzo Ball and just because of some of the lineups that I think the Cavs can throw out there. So I think offensively, his role is going to look a little bit different than it has in the past. I don't think he's going to be out there just to be a gunner, to be a guy that can go shoot every time he touches the ball, which, Sam has not always done. But I do think that he's going to be asked to do more things on the offensive end of the floor. And I'm just curious how he sees that role. Another guy that I think is very important to the Cavs' success, particularly early in the season, is Jalen Tyson. And Tyson, as we know, was the Cavs' first-round draft pick last year. This past season, didn't play a ton. He was not in the regular rotation. He contributed at times, and I thought did some good things. I thought he also had a strong showing for the Cavs Summer League team in Vegas a few months back. The question I have for him is, what role do you think you're ready for? What are you ready to contribute to this team? Because Kenny Atkinson and Kobe Altman talked about him. Primarily, I believe it was Kenny that talked about him last Tuesday at their press conference. He can't wait to see what Jalen Tyson can do. He's very excited for the games to get here so that he can see Jalen Tyson in legitimate NBA action. But with Max Strus going to miss a couple of months, with Darius Garland potentially missing some time to start the season, with Lonzo Ball, and I'm going to get to him in a second, maybe not playing in all 82 games, as I would imagine he won't, there are going to be opportunities for Jalen Tyson. I think there are going to be opportunities for Jalen Tyson to have different roles throughout the season. And I actually think the role that he could have at the start of the season might be the one that most closely mirrors the guy he was in Summer League. And I think for Tyson, I don't know that that's the role you want him in long-term on this current roster, but I do think that could be a way to get his feet wet. That could actually be a good way. Putting him in a little bit of a higher usage role could be a good way to get him comfortable on this roster and comfortable as an NBA player. Now, that's not what he's always going to be. And when the Cavs are healthy, he's going to have to be able to pick and choose his spots because there are so many more guys that are super talented, as we know, on this team. But how comfortable is he in that sort of role in the NBA? And what role does he envision for himself after what, by all accounts, was a strong summer? And he's somebody that the Cavs, whether it's this year, whether it's in the future, they're counting on him to be able to be a contributor for this team. Now, Lonzo Ball, I just mentioned, the question I have for him, what sort of plan is needed to ensure that he's ready for the postseason? I don't have to repeat it. You already know the stat I'm about to throw out there. Lonzo Ball has played 70 games in the last 4 years. Played 35 games last year with Chicago. He missed the 2 seasons before last. The year before that, he played 35 games with Chicago. That is the troubling part of Lonzo Ball, is that he has missed a lot of time. Now, by all accounts, he's healthy. I'm very curious on Monday to also hear how he's feeling physically, where he's at in terms of that entering this season and just what he's looking forward to. But I do want to know what the plan is for Lonzo in order to make sure that he is fresh and most importantly, available when the postseason gets here, because I think he's an incredibly useful player. I think he's somebody that can change the equation for the Cavs when the postseason does arrive. But for that to happen, he obviously needs to be healthy. Dean Wade is the next guy that I want to talk about. And the thing I'm most interested with him, what were the conversations like this summer between him and the coaching staff? Because I don't think it's up for debate. Dean is a talented player. Dean is a helpful player. Dean does a lot of really good things. And he is, I think, a bit of an analytical darling because he is a very good defender. And he's somebody that I think has some pretty strong defensive versatility for a guy his size. He's a legitimate 6'9". He's also a very good shooter on the offensive end of the floor. But the way that I look at Dean Wade is he's somebody that has been a little bit too tentative. And I am curious what the conversations were like between him and the coaching staff this summer, because this is, on a personal level, I think a very big year for Dean, considering that he will be a free agent next summer. I don't know if the Cavs are going to be able to re-sign him. I don't know what his market's going to be, but he needs to go out and have a good year. He does. Like, for him to get a good contract next summer, whether it be from the Cavs or somebody else, he needs to go out there and have a good year. And I think doing that starts with being somebody that is aggressive offensively, more aggressive than what he has been in the past. I have a few more left. Larry Nance Jr. is the guy that I want to ask about next, but I'm curious, and he answered this in some ways when he was reintroduced to the media after he signed with the team back in July. But what is it about your game that you think can take this team, or help, I should say, help take this team to the finals? Because he's talked about being a perfect fit here. I would just love to know the specifics. And I think I understand what the answer will be there, because I do think it's a 3-point shot. I think it's the additional depth in the front court, which the Cavs have sorely needed at times. And I think that he helps out a lot. But I am just curious from his perspective, what exactly makes him such a good fit in Cleveland for a second time around? Craig Porter Jr. is somebody that I look at as I'm very interested to see what this year is from him. The question I have from him, in what way are you more ready to be a contributor right now than you were last season? And last year, around this time, we found out Ty Jerome was the MVP of September. And prior to that, I don't know that anybody on the outside was factoring in Ty Jerome to what that team was going to be. I know I certainly was not. Like, Ty Jerome was out of sight, out of mind. I was not anticipating him being a big part of the Cavs, much less as impactful as he was for the Cavs last year. I thought Craig Porter Jr. would probably, in all honesty, I thought Craig Porter Jr. would be ahead of him in the rotation. Ty's gone. Darius is hurt. Max is out. There's going to be an opportunity for Craig Porter Jr. this year. How ready is he for it? How much more ready is he this year right now than he was 12 months ago? I don't know that answer. I think that I don't want to say this was a lost summer, because I think that'd be unfair, but I was disappointed that we didn't get to see him in Summer League. I thought it would have been a big opportunity for him to take another step forward in his career. And you don't see many guys play 3 summer leagues, and that would have been the third for Craig. I guess it was technically, he played like 6 minutes. But that's something that I look at and just say, yeah, how are you different now than you were 12 months ago? Like, why should people believe in you as a real contributor right now for this team in a way that you couldn't be last year? 2 more left. Tyrese Proctor, the number 48 overall pick for the Cavs, second-round draft pick. What lessons did you take from Summer League? I'm not anticipating Tyrese being somebody that makes a big impact on this year. It's very rare for a second-round pick to come into a 64-win team and a team that has championship aspirations, and that guy make a big impact. So I wouldn't expect that from Tyrese, but it doesn't mean he's not going to have a nice career. I think that is very firmly on the table. But what did he learn from his first experience with the NBA, and what really is his goal this season in his rookie year? I think those are very interesting things. And then finally, the newest member of the Cavs, Thomas Bryant, who signed with the Cavs last week. Very simple question. Why Cleveland? I wonder what other options Thomas Bryant has, but I'm very interested why he decided that the Cleveland Cavaliers were the correct fit for him. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked on Cavs. As I said earlier, it is media day, so you can expect a second episode of Locked on Cavs in your feeds on YouTube at some point late afternoon, early evening. That is going to be Tuesday's episode. As I mentioned earlier, I will be traveling to Florida Monday night. So tonight I'm on a plane, not going to be able to record an episode that's going to come out Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning's episode is going to be late Monday afternoon, early evening. After that, I will be back on a normal schedule. So I'll be back in your feeds Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning with everything you need about the Cleveland Cavaliers coming your way. So you can find that anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else, on YouTube as well. The best way you can help grow this show is by clicking subscribe on YouTube. Let's grow this YouTube channel, because Cavs basketball is back. I'm so excited that the basketball season is finally here, or at least the training camp portion of it. And I cannot wait to talk about this team every single day with you guys. So thanks again for making this your first listen. And I will be back tomorrow talking about Cleveland Cavaliers training camp right here on Locked on Cavs.